when you log into your MYNEWSDASH portal, you will either land on this dashboard page, which we'll come back to, or many of you, probably most of you, will open your portal and land on the stories page. The stories page is where your actual clips or stories appear. And I'm going to give it just a second here. There we go. It's loading. So as the stories begin to populate here, you will notice that over on the left-hand side, there is a filter menu. So when you first open your dashboard, you'll initially see all content from all your accounts. Many of you may only have one account or agreement. Some of you may have multiple. You can filter these results by setting a date range, by clicking on the calendar or keying in a date range. You can also filter on the specific account or accounts that you want to view. You can even filter on specific media types if you only want to see print media or web media, and so on. Once you set those filters, you would click the apply button here, and I'm going to go ahead and set this filter just to today's stories and click apply. What you'll notice, as soon as I click that apply button on the filters, my little filter funnel here in the upper toolbar turned green. That it was transparent before, and if I go back and reset the filters back to the original, which is the default, then we would see that filter become transparent again. That's just a nice little visual indicator to remind you that you are not looking at the entire set of content or stories, that you're seeing a filtered version of those. So as we begin to look at the stories themselves, you'll see that you can see the headline here, the source from where the story came from, an abstract, or usually the first line or two of that story, and then all the metadata about that particular story. You are able to edit the data by clicking the little pencil button next to any one of these stories. Most of the time you won't need to come in and do that. We've already put all the information in for you, but there may be occasion that you want to adjust something. You have the ability to do that. To view an article or story, in this case, this is a web story. So when I click on the headline, it's going to take us actually out to that story online so that we can read the original version of that. Now, this is on our real-time web service. Many of you will have our curated or edited web service, which is where we are going through and making sure that the articles exactly match the search terms that you've provided us. In that case, when you click on the view story over here on the very right, you'll see a little pop-out menu. On those, you would see a PDF. This one happens to be all text, but for, again, many of you who have the edited or curated service, you'll actually see a cached image of how that web story appeared on the day that we captured it. You also have the ability to toggle between the PDF and just a full text version. That's especially handy on those print clips. And let's scroll down a little here to find an actual print clip. Here, I'll go over to media type, tell it I only want to see print. Click apply. And now it refreshes and you can see just those print clips. On those, when you click on the headline, you'll actually see a PDF scanned image of that clip. If I blow this up a little bit, you can see better. We'll include the masthead, all of the data about where the clip came from, including the source, the type, page, section. Typically, we'll list the first or most prominent keyword that caused us to pull this article, the scanned image of the clip, and then down in the bottom right, there's a thumbnail of that tear sheet showing you the hashed out section is where this particular story was clipped from. I go back and tell it I want all media types again and apply. We'll go back to seeing what we were seeing initially. You have a number of things that you can do with the clips here from the stories page. You can email clips to someone or yourself. Let's say you found a few of these very interesting this morning. You wanted to push these over to someone else in your organization. You can select those clips by clicking the little box or selecting them, choosing the email button at the top. It'll show us just a review of what we're going to send. If you've changed your mind on one of them, you can always click the little red X to remove that one. Then if I click next here, it will prompt me to put in who I want this to go to, and it will allow me to add an email subject line. On the chance that you receive a story or clip that for whatever reason you did not want, you are able to remove that story. Keeping in mind that when you do that, you are removing the master version of that clip or story. So I would encourage you to be sure that you in fact don't want that article before you delete. When you select the one that you do want to delete and you choose the delete button, it's going to pop up and ask you to help us understand why you're deleting this by selecting a reason. If it simply didn't match your keywords or instructions, you can choose that. There's several other options here, including one that says other, which will allow you to put in some additional verbiage. Now, if I had clicked delete, that would instantly disappear from my portal entirely. Many of you are familiar with the former version of the portal workflow, and so you may understand how the folder system works, but we're going to review that. So you can see underneath each clip that there is a folder icon and a name of a folder showing. If we go over here to admin and then select the button for manage folders, we can see all of the different folders that we already have created. Now, we could also see those from the stories page. Up in the upper right from the stories page, there is also a little icon that shows the folders, and it will show us all the folders here. It also shows us how many stories are currently marked into those or filed into those folders. You can create new folders from here, or as I mentioned, you can go to the admin area and do it from there. You'll also see that there is a little edit button over here. So if for some reason we wanted to edit an existing folder, we could do that. To create a new folder, when you click the plus sign next to create new, it's going to pop open a page that says, here it is. Here's how you can create a folder with auto tagging. First thing you would do, of course, is give this folder a name, and we'll just call this sample folder. You should select whatever media types you want, keeping in mind, though, that it's okay to select all if you want all of whatever you're getting. You may only be getting print from us. You may be getting print, online, broadcast, whatever we are already pushing to your portal, that's what you're going to see. Even if you see something else in this list, just checking that off is not going to make those come in. So the folders are only going to look at the stories that we're already delivering. If you were to need to change your search terms, then you should contact your account manager just like you've always done. So once we've given the folder a name, I need to select an account since we have multiple accounts in this demo. Then, assuming that you want to automatically tag or file those stories as they come in, meaning you don't want to have to manually select each story and tell it which folder to go into, you would check off the box for enable auto tagging. You can even do that after the fact. So maybe you had a PR campaign that just finished and someone says, well, it's great all this coverage that we got, but we want to see a report of only the articles that were about that particular campaign. Then you can check this button to apply these auto tagging rules to those stories that were already delivered. The next step is to choose one of three options. Do you want only the story, or do you want all stories from whatever account you've selected? Do you want only the stories from whatever media type you selected? Or do you want to create basically a custom folder setup, which is what we're going to do here. So if of all of these articles, which this demo account monitors the automotive industry, so there's pretty much a little bit of everything in there. But let's say we only wanted to see those articles that talk about Chevrolet or Chevy. If I put those in all of these words, and I come over here to show the Boolean search. So in other words, we're giving you these user-friendly boxes to use. But behind the scenes here, it's actually creating a Boolean search string for this folder. Now, in this case, you can see I put it in all of these words. So it would say Chevrolet and Chevy, meaning it would have to say both words in order for it to get tagged into that folder. I can now tell that's not really what I meant to do. What I meant to do was to have either of those phrases. So if I put it in any of these words, and I've separated the two words by a comma, you can do the same thing with phrases, separate it by a comma, then that's what I really wanted. I wanted any mention of Chevrolet or Chevy to go into this folder. If I click create, it will instantly create that folder and it will appear up there in that list of folders back on the stories page. It would also then appear in the admin area under folders. And I'm going to go back to that one for just a moment. Coming back to admin and manage folders. I mentioned that you could edit the folders from here, just like you can from the menu on the stories page, but you also have the ability to deactivate a folder. So perhaps this was that one that was for our Fictionary PR campaign, and now that campaign is over for the year, so we no longer need it to be running or taking up space. You can deactivate that. It does not delete it or remove the contents of that folder. It just simply hides it. If you need that folder back for any reason, you can click this little button that says Show Inactive Records, and it will allow you to reactivate a folder that you'd previously deactivated. So what it shows by default is all of your active folders. We're going to move from the stories page now to the report section. So once your stories or clips have been tagged or filed into folders, you're then ready to create a report. If we hover over My Reports, and you may have had reports in the old portal, if you did, then those should have migrated over, and under My Reports here, when we hover, you should see all of those reports. The alternative is to create a report from scratch, which is what I'm going to do in this case. So if I want to tell this, I just want this to be my weekly detailed report. So I'm going to type in a name so I remember what this report is. Here's where the folders come in. Remember, the stories is basically like your library, or sort of that big bucket of where all of your clips and stories reside, and the folders are how you've organized or categorized them. But the folders are what's used for reporting, so that's why it's so important that they be in a folder. In this case, I'm going to say I want my broadcast stories folder, my print stories folder, and I only want the web stories that don't mention Mercedes-Benz. And I did that just to limit the numbers. All right, so I'm going to give it a date range next. So you choose what date range you want. In this case, I'm only choosing today's. You can alternate between either the date the article or clip was posted to your portal or the date that it was actually published. For short-term reports, I would usually do the posted date. That's the date you received the articles or the clips. Next, you can customize the design of this report. If you'd like to upload your corporate agency or organization's logo, you can do that by clicking the little Here button to upload your logo. Once it's uploaded, you can select it from the drop-down. Next, we're going to give this report a title. Now, that's different than the name that we gave it in the beginning. The name that we gave it, no one sees but you or someone using your portal. The title is what's going to actually appear on the report. Now, in this case, I'm going to, actually here, we'll call this one Weekly News Recap. You can get a little fancy and give it a cover sheet. You can type in a description if you want. But probably the most important part is the ability to pick and choose exactly which fields of data that you want. So I'm just going to select here the city and state, the published date, the media type, and you can see that once you make those selections, you can then move those around to appear where you want them to. So you wiggle them around a little bit. It's a lot like moving apps around on your phone. Sometimes you have to wiggle it a little bit to get it to go where you want it. All right. So those are all the fields of data that I want. You can see you have a lot to choose from here. I only chose a handful of those. You can also customize how the stories display within the report. Typically, the default is they're in order of the date they were posted with newest stories first, but as you can see, you have some other options. You can also customize the order in which the stories appear. So if you wanted to manually move a couple of those stories up to the very top, you can do that. We're going to go ahead and click Create. And when we click Preview here, it's going to pop us over to this tab. So you can either click Preview or you can just click on the tab here that has generated that new report we just created. In this case, because I only chose today and I chose very specific folders, we get a relatively short report. So it's telling us there are 5 clips here. And by the way, if you had uploaded your logo and used it, then that would supersede the Burrell's MYNEWSDASH logo. In other words, your logo would appear here. Then across the masthead, or sort of the headline here, it just summarizes how many of which types of media are included in this report, breaks it down by folders, and then it actually lists each of those individual stories. Just like in your portal, if you click on a headline, it's going to open up either the link if it's a web clip or the PDF if it's a print clip. That includes for the recipients. And they can't actually get into the portal, but they can see those individual articles there. Reports can be further customized by adding charts. If you want to do that, as you're on this preview screen, I'm just hovering over this Add Charts button or tab up here, and you can see that you have a variety of options. The wide bar, the horizontal bar, is where your text or the actual content of the report will appear. The smaller boxes are where you can have whichever charts that you want to add. For simplicity's sake, I'll just choose one chart above the text. So the first thing it does is it just gives me sort of this empty box, waiting for me to tell it what chart I want to include. So if I come back up to my main toolbar and hover over charts, you'll see this long laundry list of all the different charts that you can select from. Now in this case, I'm going to tell it I want impressions by media type. So I want it broken down by media type and then the total number of impressions for the date range and the folders and whatever I included in this report. So we can see those two different ones. These charts on screen are dynamic. They're clickable. So if I clicked into that print portion of the chart, it's going to show me the stories that are behind there. You can also change the chart type. So if you don't like the column chart, you can switch to a bar chart or even a pie chart. And it's as easy as just selecting the other one, and boom, there it comes. You can even expand the chart out if you're having trouble seeing it a little bit, or if you want to simply download or print this one particular chart. If you had added charts to customize this report, you would want to click Save here. Otherwise, you can revert back to the original, or you can simply leave that page and it will revert back to the original if you don't save it. So now when we come up and hover over my charts, we can also see that under my reports, we can also see that report that I just created. One other report option that I think frequently gets used is the electronic clipbook report. So when we hover over reports here, we had the detailed report, which was what I just did. You also have an option to create a clipbook. If you choose that report, it's going to essentially ask you for that same information. Give the report a name, choose the folders you want included in it, the date range, the date type, and then you're going to click Create down at the bottom. You have the ability to export any of these reports either from here or from the report itself as Word, Excel, or PDF files. You can also email a report. You can either email it now, or you can actually create a scheduled email delivery. So let's say maybe you want this report to be pushed out to you at the end of each month, or maybe the end of each week, whatever you choose. First, you would select which report you want. You give this email schedule a name. So let's say maybe I want to call this my Friday report. So I know this is the email delivery that's going to come on Friday. You, as the user of the portal, will already be in the email list. You have the ability, though, to add additional people. So if you want to add someone else within your organization, you can simply type in their email address, click the little plus sign, and then they appear and you can select them as well. If you have more than just a couple people, you can actually create a distribution list. That was back on the admin screen, and I can circle back to that. The next thing we need to do is tell it when. We're scheduling this for delivery at certain intervals, so we have to tell it when. We can do everything from every day to 1 day a week, which days a week, multiples, or monthly. Let's say I want this on Fridays, and I don't want it continuously all day on Friday. Maybe I just want it once each Friday, and I want to get those at 10 a.m. You'd then click create, and that would then show up as an active scheduled email delivery down here at the bottom, where you can edit it, deactivate it, just like you could do with the folders. I mentioned that you could manage or create a distribution list from the admin area. So this is the button that would help you do that. You would click create distribution list. Again, it's going to ask for a name. You might put in a description. Of course, choose the account. Again, many of you will only have the one account. And then start adding your users. One other thing on the admin page before we circle back to the dashboard is adding custom stories. Sometimes you may see an article in a publication that for whatever reason we're unable to monitor or clip from. You are able to add stories manually. So if you click that button, it's going to ask you which account you want to add it to. So you just simply choose which account. You'd give, you would take the headline off of that story and key it in. The only fields that are required are the ones denoted with the red asterisk. So you'd key in the source information, the media type information, the publication date. The rest is all optional. If it's a web clip, you would want to put in the original URL, or if it were a print clip that you scanned an image of, then you would want to upload the PDF of that. And then you would just click add, and it would add that. You would then be able to go to the stories page and see it. I failed to mention it would ask you which folder you want it in. And that way then it could be included in your overall reporting. We'll circle back to the dashboard, go over a couple things there, and I believe we have a few questions already, so then we'll get to answering those for you. So I mentioned that some of you may actually open up your system to the dashboard page, but many to the stories page. You actually have control over that. Up in the very far upper right, you may have noticed this first initial. It's going to, whoever the portal is the main user, that's whose initial you're going to see. But basically that gray circle in the upper right corner is where you can access your profile. When you click on my profile, you can either go in and change your contact information. You can change your password here, which we encourage you to do frequently. Or you can change your home page setting. So in this particular one, I have it set to automatically go to the stories page. You may too, but if you prefer the dashboard or vice versa, you can change that. You could also have it open up to the admin panel, but typically it's the dashboard or stories page. All right, so back to the dashboard. These dashboards can be customized. So it defaults to these 5 charts, the latest stories, impressions, US map, top sources, number of stories by media type. It defaults to the last 30 days, and I believe it defaults to everything. Yeah, it does. So if you wanted to filter only on a particular account or folder or media type or date range, remember you can do that from here. And again, remember your little filter funnel would turn green just to remind you that you are seeing only a portion of these results. To customize the dashboard, you would hover over my dashboards. When you hover over it, you'll see any that were already saved, but you'll notice that we're on the basic dashboard. If I hover over the 2 little tiles, it would allow me to customize this, to add more charts, have it be laid out differently, whatever I want to do here. Whatever you choose, you have the ability to change the charts themselves. So again, just like with the reports, you can hover over charts and then replace or move any charts that you want to add. So let's say I don't want latest stories. Instead, I'd rather have a word cloud. And that may take a minute to generate because I didn't set any filters, so it's probably running through about 10,000 articles. Again, like in the reports, most of these charts have different options that you can select from the type of chart, the map. Most of you probably have US coverage only, but if you have global, you can switch it to a world map. You can also hide or show the legend, hide or show the labels. And again, remember, you can pop that chart or expand it out if you want to see it a little clearer. And all of these charts are dynamic. Not only are they showing exactly what is in there for the date range and filters you have selected, but you can actually click through the charts to see what's behind that particular one. I can't remember, I think I clicked on Wyoming, only has 2 stories. So it would then show us those 2 stories. Oh, looks like it's going to think about it for a minute. So we'll go ahead and back out of there. If you've customized a chart and you want to save it, you would do that here in the upper right. You see this little disc. You would click that to save a dashboard, and you'll notice it's going to pop up and ask you to enter the dashboard name. Once you give it a name, then you can always navigate back to that dashboard at any time in the future. And assuming that dashboard did have specific dates or something included in it, you could then reset the filters. It would keep the same charts, but you could reset the filters and then update that. Let's just edit this a little. I don't think that's actually not a real Ford dashboard. That may be why it's not populating. But again, basically you can customize these to appear however you want. And a lot of people do like to do that. They will do that maybe as an addendum to a report rather than including charts within the body of the report. So just something to think about there.